What is going on, y'all? It's the Caveman. We are back with Against the Blitz, episode 7. Football with Oz and I, Austin, are going to dive in a couple of fun segments that we have for you today. A lot of it revolving around the award ceremony that's coming up within the next week, but we're also going to start off by giving you our first team all hate watch. Now, we'll get into that in a second, but I did quickly because I feel like it's too relevant not to talk about briefly the big NBA trade that happened the night before we recorded this. You'll see this Monday, but Luka to the Lakers and then AD to the Mavs. You seemed before we started recording a lot more basketball privy than I am, so I'll let you kind of break down what you thought before I give my casual opinion.
Yeah, I mean, in any sport, trading a 25-year-old like face of the franchise for a 31-year-old center that has struggled to see the court over the last decade, it's not going to be a good trade, regardless of how you look at it. I feel like they could have taken advantage of like any other team that would have given them 6 first-round picks and like their entire bench and starting lineup for Luka, and instead they get a center and Max Christie and like 1 pick. Like I don't think they tried that hard. Like the trade deadline still has some days left on it. They could have really pushed for this, but you know what? They just panicked for some reason. They saw Luka was fat and then traded him away.
Literally, like I saw a bunch of different reports. One of the ones I just read was that Luka did not want out, or at least he didn't request out, and that the Mavericks approached the Lakers with Luka on the table, which is just insane. The fact that they're out here shopping the face of their organization. Like, I've never heard of that in my life, like in any sport ever.
Even if they get a championship out of it somehow, it doesn't even feel justified regardless, because like for the long term, I don't know how many years AD has of good basketball, but it's probably like less than 6. And Luka will be 31 by the time he's 6. He'll be AD's age by the time, like in 6 years. Like, it's not fair to any Mavs fan that bought a Luka jersey, and now they have to hope that an old Kyrie and an old AD are gonna get enough championships in a small amount of time to justify any of this, and it probably won't happen either. So it's stupid. It's so dumb.
For a guy like Anthony Davis, as far as I know, that, like you said, has a hard time even staying on the court. I would imagine as he gets older, that's going to become much more of an issue. So give it 3-4 years, and this guy's probably going to be playing 30 games out of the 80 game season, and all of a sudden you're left with what? Kyrie, if he's even still there. Like, who knows what will happen with that? He can get upset randomly and leave. Like,
he does that, a lot.
He does that. So the Mavericks are leaving themselves with nothing, and it's very interesting to think, like, because when I saw this trade, it was like 1:00 in the morning, and one of the first things people do when it comes to big trades across some of the major sports is try to compare it to the sport they know best, and of course that would be football for me. And I could not for the life of me think of an NFL comparison to this trade because of how mind-boggling it was. I did eventually come up with one, but if you had to give a comparison, what would you say it is?
I mean, like a hydrogen bomb for a coughing baby. It's like it is such like a polar opposite like player and quality of player. It's so stupid. But like I felt that like Joe Burrow for TJ Watt was the one I kind of came up with like a young star elite production player for a 31-year-old aging defensive star, which like just doesn't hold as much value as a star offensive player these days. So it just felt stupid. It's so stupid.
I legitimately sat on the toilet for like an hour, just sitting here, just trying to think of a fucking comparison. I don't know why I don't know why I got so hung up on it. Like, I'm not like somebody that will like pitch a tent when they're sitting on the toilet for like 45 minutes. Like, I'm not one of those people, but I literally sat down, I saw the trade, and I'm like, what does this like equal? And I finally came up with something. And I felt like keeping quarterbacks out of it was a must because it made it too difficult for me.
Yeah.
So I said The equivalent is like Minnesota, a team, the Vikings, that seem to be kind of on the doorstep. It feels like maybe a piece or two away, and they could really be contending. And they have their face of the franchise, their superstar leading the way in Justin Jefferson. And in the bleak of the night, they go and ship him off to a Los Angeles roster, the Rams, for a player that has been very helpful to them over the last few years with all the success that they've had. And they feel like, they probably can still win a couple more championships with their aging star in Matthew Stafford or LeBron James. So they're going to try and squeak as much out of him as they can. So they go and get Jefferson. They ship off Cooper Kupp back to the Vikings, an aging star that has done them a lot of good, but at this point really isn't involved or as involved as he might be in the future. And like a first round pick, which basically in my mind was all it was.
And that's hard even because like an NBA first round pick isn't even as valuable as an NFL first round pick is. So that's why to me it almost felt like a second, because where they're going to be is like the middle to end of the draft, the first round of the draft. And at that point, you're getting like a shooting guard from Providence that's like 6'2" and is a senior. Like you're not getting those like 6'9" crazy athletes from Duke at the top of the first. Like you're not getting Cooper Flagg or like Ace Bailey at the end of the first. Like you're getting, I don't even know who's going to be there, but it's not going to be worth a Luka. Like you're not going to find Luka production at all. That's insane. So I do like that comparison.
They might not find a Luka for another 50 years. They might not find a Luka ever again.
They do, like once every 2 decades, they get like their old, slow white guy, and they had Dirk forever. That was the first part of their old, slow, unathletic white guy. He retires. They immediately bring in Luka to be that for the next 20 years, and then they gave it up. So in like 2030 something, we might get to see it again, but
yeah.
Until then, you get Dwight Powell. Congratulations, guys.
I feel
Dwight Powell on your basketball team.
I feel so bad for Mavericks fans. It's like Jerry Jones is getting fried over these last few weeks for the decisions he's been making as an owner, and then Mark Cuban, that front office goes and swoops in and now is the most hated team in Dallas. And Jerry Jones is like thanking his lucky stars that he doesn't have to catch this heat anymore.
I mean, like, even like speaking of like hate watching players, I feel like a lot of people are going to hate watch Anthony Davis now.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the fact that they want the trade to be as lopsided as possible. And they're going to want AD to just melt and make this like the least valuable trade of all time.
I've hate watched Anthony Davis briefly in my basketball watching life, because the only time I've really watched basketball was either the playoffs and the finals, or if I bet on basketball, which I had a span of doing that regardless of not understanding it too much. And I bet on Anthony Davis a few times. I don't think he's ever hit for me ever.
No.
Whether he's a part of a parlay or I bet him straight, he always fucking misses. So I've been an anti-Anthony Davis fan for a long time for that reason alone. And now you're right. People are going to want that man to rot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
A lot of the hate watches on my list are kind of like that, where they're not players that I hate specifically. Like it's not a player that I just hate looking at him and I hate watching him play. It's more because of like the things around him, where either I was low on him in the draft and I wanted to stay that way, I want him to do bad, or the fans around the player are just obnoxious and put him much higher than he needs to be, or I made a take at one point and I needed to come true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what the rest of my list looks like. Is not players that I hate, so don't take it personally if any of these offend you. It's just like players that I don't want to succeed for other reasons.
Oh yeah, I have so many players on this list that fit the description of everything you described, and maybe multiple for a few. This could get personal. Maybe not.
QB is the biggest one, right? That's the position that gets the most hate of anybody. So who's the quarterback that you like to hate more than anybody?
This is not debatable in my mind, but I do feel bad bringing it back up because
Hold on.
the hate. Are you going to take a guess?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, go for it.
All right. I feel bad because I feel like my hate watching has succeeded. So now things have been going not great. And now I feel like I can't talk about it like I used to because now things are going poorly. But Brock Purdy, I hate watched the shit out of Brock Purdy every week. I hate watch this guy, and it's nothing to do with him. Like, this is one of those cases where he's a great guy. He is seemingly
seventh round pick.
Like his whole story, there's nothing not to love. I just cannot stand the way people, specifically Niners fans, propped him up after the last couple of years.
I'm with that.
It's been great. Don't get me wrong, but fan bases do this thing where they vault their own players into conversations they don't belong in, and then all of a sudden they feel like they're getting hated on. It's like, no, we're just dragging him back down to earth.
It put you back in your place. Like, you don't deserve to be in this top 10. Like, you're not near CJ Stroud. You are not near Jaden Daniels. You are nowhere near these players, but you put them there. So obviously it feels like hate when I take you back and I put you at QB 20 or QB 22 where you belong, which is not an insult for a Mr. Irrelevant. Like, that's good.
Right.
Like, that's a good thing.
Like, I remember when I first made my quarterback list, like, was it before this year, before last year? And I had him in that like 16 to 21 range somewhere.
Fair.
And I was getting fucking flamed, like destroyed. I had people like halfway through the season when he would have a good game going back to that video and saying, "What about now? What about Brock now?"
No.
I would make individual breakdowns of Brock Purdy's games where he didn't look great, where he made a throw that wasn't great, and I explained why. And people would be going back to that video like all the time.
Being the QB of a good team doesn't just automatically make you a great quarterback. You can be good, and that's okay. Most quarterbacks in the NFL are good. So when you're not as good as the other ones, you fall in that 16 to 22 kind of range. And that's generous to me, honestly, for what he's had surrounding him. Like, I think if you plant him on another team, he would be that Mr. Irrelevant kind of player. And he would still be fine. He would be a fine player, but he's not a superstar. We can't act like he's a superstar worthy of like a $50 million extension. He doesn't belong in that realm.
And finally, I think a lot of 49er fans are kind of seeing that this year, which is partly why I feel bad even piling on, because now the supporters, the cult followers that he did have, some of them are starting to wake up. So it's like, I don't want to pile on, but finally this is coming to light. I saw a tweet, and this is where I really got pushed over the edge. Brett Coleman, I respect the hell out of Brett Coleman. I think he's extremely smart, very talented at what he does, but I have found myself disagreeing profusely with some stuff he says sometimes. And I went back and found the tweet before we recorded because I wanted to be sure that he said what he actually said. And the tweet was like word for word. He believes, this was like July of last year, that he believed, I don't know if it's still the case, but Brock Purdy and Joe Burrow shouldered the same type of responsibility and that they were both top 8 quarterbacks in the NFL. He tweeted that out word for word, like his real account. And that was when I had enough. Like I couldn't do it anymore. And
I mean, like when you're like in terms of responsibility, like, they're both quarterbacks for like teams that are supposed to contend. Like, sure. They both share similar responsibility to that. But like when you have a future Hall of Famer possibly at running back who has been setting records the last few years, and you have one of the greatest left tackles of all time and a very, very, very quality defense besides this year, like, they can easily win games with Brock Purdy throwing for 130 yards. Like, it's happened and it's possible. Joe Burrow, I'm confident, has never won a game passing for 130 yards. It's not possible. He has to throw for 350 to win. It's the only way he can win a game. So, and that's not even close. That's not real. Like, that's so stupid. And it always was a bad thing.
That was the worst thing I think I've ever read from someone. With all due respect to him, like, I almost puked. And from that moment forward, I already hate watched Brock Purdy. I hate watched him even more. So that has got to be mine. Who did you think I was going to go with?
Jalen Hurts. For a similar reason. For a similar reason of a team that has a solid quarterback. He's not bad. He's a solid football player that has one of the best supporting casts since I've been alive. And they win games, and they're like, look, he did that. Look what he did. No, a team of like 15 All Pros did that, and you were there, and you did okay. But like the amount of times we've talked about Jalen Hurts on this podcast in a somewhat negative light, and for similar reasons of like a team that puts him on this crazy pedestal, but they haven't brought him down yet, and they definitely won't if he wins the Super Bowl.
Oh, no.
So that's going to be a crazy.
Yeah, I still, I honestly, my runner-up would have been Lamar Jackson, just because of the whole Lamar, Josh Allen.
His fans are awful. They're disgusting. They're awful,
Yeah.
and they're so rude to everyone. Yes.
Well, does that segue into your hate watch quarterback by chance?
It actually doesn't. I do, because I love watching Lamar Jackson play, which is the only reason I can't do that.
Fair.
Because like he's just one of my favorite football players to watch. But I actually have Baker Mayfield for a way different reason.
Ooh.
I love Baker Mayfield, and I hate Browns fans so much for how they treated him. So I hate watch his success, and I want him to put up 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards every single season, just so that Browns fans have to sit there and watch what they could have had and what they did have, and they sold their soul for Deshaun Watson, who's now the second pedophile in the AFC North.
Yeah.
Next to Justin Tucker. So, yeah, hey, Justin Tucker will now be my hate watch kicker. I'll write that in after this. But yeah, Baker Mayfield, I love him. Like he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. I wish all the success as a hate watch towards the Browns. I want him to murder them.
That's interesting. I didn't think about putting it in that sort of light, because
that's the only one I did that for. That's the only one I did that for. Because like quarterbacks get enough hate as it is. I don't need to add more to that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, who could I hate that doesn't get a lot of hate, but I watch out of spite for Browns fans, and that was an easy one for me.
I like it because they ran that man out of town
with an injured shoulder, like a shattered shoulder, and he still played on it and didn't play great. And they're like, all right, well, time to shop for Deshaun Watson. Yeah, he did all those things, but like, you know, he could save our franchise.
Yeah, they had some old wash receiver's father yelling at them on Twitter, so they got antsy and then his shoulder was causing him not to play well. So they're like, you know what? Let's do something rash.
I almost put that old wash receiver on my list, but at this point, I almost feel bad. I'm like, he's just gone. Like he's done for the NFL.
I kind of had that problem too. It's like there were certainly some guys that, like, I was kind of saying with Brock, he already is kind of getting that shit piled on, so I don't want to make it worse. But I've hate watched him too much. It would have been disingenuous for me not to put.
You have to do what you got to do, you know. Like it is what it is.
Yes.
Running back's a hard one for me because I was like, everyone loves running backs. It's hard to pinpoint one bad running back because they all produce if they're a starter. So like, I'm curious to see who you have on there because I have two.
I also struggled to pick a running back, but once I found him in the list of names on the Our Lads depth chart, I was like,
It's
fucking him. It's fucking him. Fucking Tyler Algier. Does anyone outside of the team facing Bijan in fantasy actually like Tyler Algier? No one likes seeing that guy on the field. No one.
It's not that bad, but like when you have Bijan freaking Robinson, like it's insane that he gets anywhere close to like 45% snap shares. It's insane. It's stupid.
There was a game this year, and I'm going to find it because I'm definitely going to edit this because a lot of people are going to relate. There was a drive this year where they were on like the 1 or 2 yard line. They ran dive with Algier 3 straight times. He got stuffed every time. And then the fourth time on 4th and goal, they gave it to Bijan and he scored. And I remember, I don't know if I was on like the Score app or Reel, like the Reel app that does the reactions to actual plays. And the first thing was like, who would have fucking thought after Bijan scored, because they had tried Algier 3 straight times. And oh my God, I like I said, I don't think there's a human being on planet Earth outside of the team facing Bijan in a given week that likes seeing Algier on the field. I feel bad for him, but my God, it's so frustrating.
Bijan is the second highest running back grade I have ever given. Number 1 is Saquon. Number 2 is Bijan. So obviously I am insanely high on Bijan. So when you try out this short thick little BYU running back.
Bowling
Like
ball.
it's a bowling ball, but like he's not a receiver like Bijan. He's not as explosive as Bijan. He doesn't have the vision that Bijan has. Like he's just a little stronger, a little bit angrier, but like it has a time and a place. It's not worthy of like almost 50% snap shares in some games at all. And you wonder why the Falcons seemingly still can't make the playoffs. I mean, use your good players. That might be a good start. That's just an idea.
Well, who are your two running backs? This will be good.
The first one's weird. It's Braylon Allen.
I think I know why you talked about this one.
Well, I was historically a little low on Braylon Allen as it was. I didn't think that he was worthy of this like top 5 rookie running back hype. And I thought Isaiah Davis, the guy that they drafted after him, was higher. I thought he was better. And then when Braylon Allen popped off, like the first 3 weeks of the season, everyone was like, "Oh, he's the number 1 rookie running back in the draft," and Isaiah Davis is nobody. He can't even play. And then they gave Isaiah Davis some playing time. He took over. Like he hopped Braylon Allen. He took over as the receiving back. And then when Breece Hall wasn't playing, Isaiah Davis had majority touches. So I think the Jets finally also realized that Isaiah Davis is a better running back. And Braylon Allen's efficiency went down to like 2 yards of carry at the end of the season. Like he was struggling. So I was like, it doesn't feel good as a hate watch to wish pain on a rookie, but like I had another rookie that I really wanted to succeed, and Braylon Allen wasn't letting him. So I kind of had to root for him to fail, and he did. And Isaiah Davis got a chance, and I looked better. That's what hate watching is all about.
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do. That's
gotta do what you gotta do.
That's the motto to this whole thing. Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes. The other one was Swift, DeAndre Swift. And that's not because I hate the player. I just literally hate watching all 22 film of DeAndre Swift. It makes me mad. The amount of holes that he'll have. And then just slam directly into the back of Coleman Shelton. And then fall backwards like a butt fumble. Like he does it all the time. He's not a good running back. He's good in space, but he's not a good actual like running back that should be getting 20 carries a game. And like, it's not that I wish the best for him. I loved him in Detroit, but I hate having to watch it. That's where the hate watch comes from. It's not fun.
The contract he got was crazy.
Oh my God.
I could not believe that was probably one of the most outlandish contracts that was given out this offseason.
Yeah.
And he actually like probably had one of the better seasons of his career, which is kind of crazy considering I feel like he's been in better situations with behind better offensive lines, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I was shocked, like, because I was going into the year ready to hate watch the shit out of Swift, and he didn't shut me up. It's not like he put up 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns.
No, I'm not sure,
but he definitely did not. He
had
did
a few good games.
Yes,
he had a few good games, but he also had games where he was invisible. Mm-hmm. And there were, I think, 4 or 5 games where Caleb Williams was the leading rusher on the team because he couldn't get going, like 12 carries for 20 yards kind of thing. So it's like, you kind of have to be more like, I'd rather have someone that's consistent than someone that just splashes a big play here and there. That's kind of what he is. And I hate watching him.
Yeah, I thought he wouldn't have a job by week 8. Like that was my big thing in the offseason. Like Roshan Johnson or Khalil Herbert will somehow as a tandem just cut into his touches so much where he's really even involved.
I thought Herbert was the best running back on that team. And then they got rid of him. And he actually played good the last 2 games for the Bengals when Chase Brown got hurt. But that was shocking to see them trade him away and stick to DeAndre Swift when their rushing attack was like the worst it had been in years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was weird to see.
Now, I wanted to go to tight end because I feel like this is also something that a lot of people can relate with. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I actively hate watched or I do still hate watch, but it's just so funny. It's such a big thing that I feel like I had to mention it. I did for a period of time hate watch Mo Alley-Cox. Just because
is this out of the Austin Hooper thing?
Yes, it's just because like who in their right mind thought Mo Alley-Cox was ever better than Austin Hooper? That was one of the funniest TikTok virality. One of the funniest sports TikTok viral videos I've ever watched is that argument, and I just couldn't believe my ears. Like Austin Hooper this year was much better than Mo Alley-Cox.
He was,
that argument. So seeing Austin Hooper do well And Mo Cox, I don't even know if I heard his name once this year.
No.
Like, sorry.
And the tight end room sucks too. Like they have like the worst tight end room in the NFL, and he still managed to kind of suck.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
That's a brief one. But who is your tight end?
I had 1 and 2. So Kyle Pitts is one where I'm like, I don't hate watch him, but his fans are so obnoxious. But like they think he's a top 5 like, tight end talent, and he's so close. He's not that close. He has so much work to do, and I think he'll get there when he's like 28. But he's like 23 right now. He has time. He's not this like all-world talent that was drafted like 4th overall and should be taking over the league soon. Like it's a lot of it's his fault. Like he's not a good blocker. He's not a good hustler. He's not physical. Like he has a lot of work to do. So I hate watch Kyle Pitts for his fans. But Irv Smith is my least favorite tight end in the NFL. And that is my hate watch tight end.
Why?
Because Irv Smith is awful at everything he has ever attempted to do. Actually, no, I take that back. What was Thaddeus Moss?
Yes.
He's the worst tight end I've ever watched.
He's a Bengal, right?
For like a preseason. And he came in, his first play, he had a 50-yard touchdown called back because he held. And then he dropped 2 consecutive passes. And then never got to see the field ever again. He got cut. So he was so bad and got a job because his dad was Randy. And he played with Joe Burrow on the 2019 LSU team. It's the only reason he was even employed.
Jesus.
That was terrible.
Moss and Irv Smith. Irv Smith is a crazy ball. That's crazy. Well,
yeah, they were both Bengals, and Irv Smith was awful. He was terrible.
He was a Bengal this year, no?
He was a Chief this year, and then I think he got cut and went to the Texans. I think that's right, when like Jordan got hurt.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
I do remember seeing him catch a pass with a team, and I was like, what the Irv Smith?
I think he caught one like either in the playoffs. I think he caught like a 3-yard pass in the playoffs, and I was like, Smith. What tight end is Smith on that team? Is that Irv? Get him off my screen. I almost turned it off.
Yes, I think you're right. It was recently too, because I was literally like, who is Smith Jr.?
Yeah,
the Texans.
It's like a 2nd-round pick in the NFL, and it's done nothing. It's terrible.
No,
who's your receiver?
I'm gonna have fun with the receivers. So
I only picked one that like I genuinely don't like. And this is a personal one.
Okay, I'll start with my personal.
Yeah, go for your 3.
So my personal one, it has to be Stephon Diggs as a Bills fan.
I hate watching
the fuck out of Diggs this year, and by no means was I happy that he got hurt.
Yeah,
he was actually kind of cooking before he got hurt too, which was pissing me off.
I tried trading for him in fantasy.
Yeah, he was frying, but I was very happy to see the Bills succeed as much as they did, and seeing everyone on the offense do well. Well, mostly everyone do well without him being around. Like he really had this mindset of Josh Allen and the Bills offense will not be as good or cannot do it without me type of persona.
Yeah.
And he was entirely wrong. And I was so glad to see that. And I was secretly hoping he would just go to Houston and not get hurt, but just kind of be the irrelevant old ass wash receiver on Houston that was behind 2 of the young kids. Like
Brown's Odell style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's kind of like, that's, I never really liked Diggs that much. Because he has just so much drama everywhere he goes, where it's like every fan base that enjoys watching him has to hate him at some point.
Yep.
Like Minnesota fans ended up not liking him. Bills fans loved him for like a year or two. Then he turns on them. Texans fans love him now. He's gonna turn on them. Like it's just so weird for someone that seems so positive when he gets there, and then he just turns on everybody quick.
It's a thing. It's like it's so fake to me. He's and I don't know the guy, of course, but just from the stuff he preaches about positivity and being a hard worker and all this bullshit.
Yeah, maybe.
It just feels so disingenuous to me, just seeing all the shit that he stirs up when he's ingrained in an organization and he's suddenly unhappy. And the frustrating part to me is like the one thing the Bills offense needed this year was someone that can separate quickly. And at this point in his career, that's really what Diggs is. Like he would have been perfect for this offense had he just not been a bitch. Like he's the exact kind of receiver we really could have used.
Yeah.
But he just had to bitch and whine and complain about who knows what. And we were stuck with nothing up until we traded for Amari Cooper, who was injured, now requiring surgery, and was basically irrelevant. So that was frustrating.
Yeah. Who are your other two?
Oh, this is not going to be met with very much positivity. Well,
go for it. It might be from me.
Marvin Harrison was one of my other ones.
Yep.
We talked about it last week, so I won't get into it too much, but people were acting like this guy was going to go for 1,512 in his rookie year. Like people were, and this is fantasy. This was a lot of the fantasy community specifically, which drove me nuts. Like there was no universe where this guy should have been a top 15 fantasy pick ever, but he was like consensus, maybe even top 12 in some leagues. Like it blew my mind how highly people thought of the production he would have in his rookie season. And sure, you can be as high on him as a prospect as you want, but not everything is just an automatic fit, especially for a rookie. And we learned that with Bijan, and for whatever reason, we didn't learn it with Marvin either. So hopefully people will now get the hint. And I want him to be good. I want him to do very well. Like I even had a bet with someone in my Discord that was like over under 5.5 100-yard games for Marvin this year. And he took the over. And I'm like, he's going under. Like he's not going to have 6. And I don't think he even came close. I think he had like,
what did he have, like 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was one that I was low key hate watching because I had Malik Neighbors ranked like a few spots higher than him on my big board. Like, I have Malik Neighbors like the number 2 or 3 overall player on my big board. And Marvin Harrison was still top 10, but he was like 9. Had a lot of the linemen over him. And that was kind of when I started producing a little bit more content, and people thought that was insane. Especially after his like 150-yard game where he had like 2 touchdowns and he went berserk. And that was kind of the last time we saw him dominate a game. That was the last time he did anything that wasn't just like 80 yards. Like it was a very average season for someone that was hyped up to be the best receiver prospect since like Julio or Jamar. He never came close to their rookie seasons.
I can't tell you how many times I looked at like my fantasy app and I opened it and I saw Marvin Harrison with like 1 catch for 3 yards at halftime. Like that was a consistent day or a consistent game for Marvin this year, which sucks. But
to be a high-end receiver, you have to be able to separate though. And he just doesn't do that well, at least yet. And that actually is kind of what led me to my next receiver was George Pickens. As someone that is tainted to be this like by the fans as this knocking on the door of the top 10 receivers kind of thing, where I think he's not that close at all. Like I think he's way closer to 30 than he is to 10, which is like, it sounds crazy for someone that almost puts up 1,000. I think he might even put up 1,000 yards, if not pretty close. I think he had like just over 1,000. But he's kind of this like, I don't want to say like deep ball merchant, but like actually he is. Like he can't separate in certain games, which is why we saw him against the Bengals put up 0 yards in a huge game for them. And any game where they take away the deep ball, he struggles. On top of him just being a like horrible teammate and a bad human being, it seems like he's also a overrated football player. Like I'm not taking him over anybody like Drake London or anyone like that from his class, like at all, not even close.
No, so, I agree. I agree with that. I think he is much closer to 30 than he is to 10. I do think he has his moments where if he does find himself in open space, he's surprisingly decent after the catch.
Yeah.
Like for a guy that usually is just like somebody might comp to like a Cortland Sutton, for example. Like Cortland Sutton isn't taking a slant to the house. Like George Pickens can do that if he can get open, and he has. But you don't very often see him win inside in the short game to where that opportunity presents itself as often as it might for any of the actual top 10 receivers. So I agree. Like he definitely gets overrated a ton, and it's a lot of because like, oh, look at the quarterback he's playing with and the offense he's in, but he still puts up these numbers. It's like that only goes so far to me. He's certainly a top 32 receiver. Like he's one of the best wide receiver ones, but that's as far as it goes for me.
Yeah, he's not a guy that you are like winning a Super Bowl with as like your top option to me. Like you would need an all-star cast around him to make for like for you to win a Super Bowl with him as the number one option. Just because like you need volume. You need volume to be like a high-end wide receiver one. Even guys like AJ Brown that are typically better at deep balls can still have these like 7 to 9 reception games because he can win inside and win as an elite blocker and do stuff like that. But George Pickens just has like the weirdest attitude that like it seems like he's going towards like a worse version of what Stephon Diggs has been mentally. So he's easily comfortably in my number one hate watch receiver.
Interesting. I did not. I guess he's also a Steeler, so it probably helps your.
It does definitely help, but I also just don't like him as it is. Like I like Lamar Jackson. Like I like guys in the division. But I like Zay Flowers. I don't like George Pickens.
Fair enough. I can see that, and he does get propped up a bit too much, and that's kind of. I mean, my last receiver. I think this happened to him. In his rookie year before the season started, way too much, and this is extremely heartbreaking to say, but. I feel like I can't even admit this without a laser pointed at my forehead.
Yes.
I did silently hate watch Keon Coleman. Like I just hated the pick so much. I hated the decision to trade back so much. I watched him in like one of the first preseason games, and I wish I can remember. I think it was against the Bears, and he was going up against Jalen Johnson a few reps. And I broke it down, and I'm like, this ain't good, bro. Like, this shit don't.
He's not good yet. Yeah.
No, right. And
not a good receiver yet.
I literally got shredded in that video too for saying like this isn't promising. Like I get he's still young and this is a preseason game, yada yada yada. But a guy like Jalen Johnson is who he's going to be seeing if he's on the field. Like these are the kind of guys he's going to have to win against in the Bills receiving room because there's no one else that a Jalen Johnson is going to see amongst this receiving corps. So I just didn't feel good about it. I still don't feel good about it. I just hate watched because I hated it so much.
That's fair. I understand to hate watch your own players.
Like
I get it.
I wanted him to do well. I want him to do well. I want to be wrong, but I also wouldn't be mad if I was right because that's what happens with watching.
You have to separate. I'll say it 1,000 times. You have to separate unless you are like DeAndre Hopkins, who still can't separate or could separate. This prime. Even though you're a jump ball guy, you have to be able to get open, or they're not going to throw it. So like, it was a weird team fit from the beginning. We've gotten into that plenty of times, but I kind of went there.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Well, I had 2 linemen, and I'm going to cover one real quick because I really didn't hate watch him all year, but when I saw his name, I had to write him down, and that's center Bo Limmer, and there's only one reason why I hate watch Bo Limmer. How would you spell his first name?
I know how it is spelled. I know how I would spell it. Okay, B-O, but it's like BEAUX or whatever. Like it's something stupid.
The most obnoxious spelling of a first name. The most overly ridiculous spelling of a first name I've ever seen. And that alone was enough. I'm like, I'm going to hate watching this guy from now on. Why is your name 6 letters?
Like a mid to late round like rookie center Arkansas with like who had to come in and start for like most of the season. Yeah, I hate that guy.
And had to block Jalen Carter on the most important play of the game in the postseason.
Yeah, he was terrible in pass. He was good in run. He was a good run. He was a good run blocker for like most of the season. But yeah, his pass pro was pretty bad for like every game.
I don't actually hate him.
Shout out Bo Limmer, man. That's sad.
I won't actually hate watch him, but like.
No, you can just hate his name. You can hate his name. Bo Limmer, B-O with Limmer would actually be a cool looking name. But having like 3 vowels in there, that's a tragedy.
Seriously. And then, I don't know. I feel like you could put his first name onto his last name and you can make it like one word. Bo Limmer. It would still be Bo Limmer.
Yeah.
It would still be Bo Limmer. Yeah. It was just one word. I don't know.
Yeah.
My other lineman, though, quickly was Trevor Penning. I don't think the guy was ever good. I don't think he is good. And on top of it, he's just an asshole. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a positive report about Trevor Penning.
No.
Ever.
He was better this year. He was playable this season. Previous season, he was unplayable as a football player. But, like, it's kind of weird that he's kind of had, like, a worse character arc of, like, Spencer Brown, this like mammoth of a Northern Iowa right tackle that starts off terrible and hated by all and becomes a little bit better, which is kind of weird that like there's multiple of them. But he's like, he doesn't seem as good of a character as Spencer Brown or as good of an athlete, so I don't think he'll quite get there. But I was low-key rooting for him because of how many people do hate him.
Mm-hmm.
And Saints fans just despise him and despise the pick. So I was low-key rooting for him, but I do get it because he's like not a nice person at all.
No. I remember reading a report that he like drove one of his teammates into the bench in a practice once or something like that. And he got into a big fight. And this was like a consistent thing of him just getting into fights with his own team. Like, what is your problem? Yeah. And this was as a young kid too. Like,
yeah, he's like 22. That kind of
yes, stuff. Like it's not like you're an established veteran doing this on a new team. It's like you're new to this whole league. Like you're supposed to be the one getting bullied. You're not supposed to be bullying other people.
I can appreciate it at times for what it is. Like if you're a bully, you're a bully, and you can bully the other team. But he's not bullying the other team enough. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna be a bully, be good. Be Richie Incognito, where you're like the worst person ever and a huge bully, but like you're at least like an all-pro level guard. Like,
yes.
Like at least be good.
Yeah, so that was my two linemen.
Mine was also actually a Bengals player from this season, Trent Brown, because I was unreasonably high on Amarius Mims, and Mims got hurt early, so Trent Brown got the starting nod at right tackle. But I was waiting for Trent Brown to have like a slew of bad games so that Amarius Mims could come in and be the right tackle. And unfortunately, that came because Trent Brown got his leg shattered in the Commanders game that I had to watch live. But it ended up actually being pretty good. Amarius Mims looked solid for his first season, so it kind of worked. Not the way that I wanted. I hoped that he just had a few bad games and get benched. But instead, he just got his leg shattered in half and my guy got to start after all. So it was a bad feeling hate watch. Like I don't want to root for my own guys to do bad, but I wanted the guy that I wanted to play. It's kind of a shitty one.
No, I get it.
I
gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
All right. Now on defense, I didn't have someone for. Did I? I think I did. I didn't fill out too many of each position. I think I just have like 6.
I have one for each.
Yeah, roughly.
I'll do it. In sake of time, I will give I'll tell my player and give like a 1-sentence spiel on why I hate watching defensive player.
Okay, start with an edge rusher.
TJ Watt.
Oh,
my answer is Steelers fans are huge babies. That's why. With the defensive player of the year thing, they're huge babies about that whole thing.
Oh my God!
And I want that to happen every year.
I forgot about that. Yes, I hated on TJ Watt for that pure reason too. Oh my God!
Yeah. And it happened this season too.
Comprehend that he was not good enough to beat Myles Garrett that year. He wasn't good enough to even be All-Pro second team this year.
Nope.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So yeah, TJ Watt's my hate watch. Who you got for your edge rusher?
My hate watch for edge rusher was Brian Burns.
Whoa.
I fucking could not believe my eyes when people were trying to tell me this guy was like a tier 1 edge rusher. Like people were legitimately trying to tell me he was like a top 7, top 5 guy. I'm like, are you fucking out of your godforsaken mind? And this was like around the time he got dealt to New York for like the trade and pay. Like they gave him like a contract that made him the highest paid edge rusher or whatever.
He might be someday, but yeah, not today.
I was like disgusted. Like there are 10 edge rushers for me that are comfortably better, and I can argue that there are other guys that he's in the tier with that he's not better than. So he's probably like a top 15 guy for sure.
Yeah, I would say.
But outside, like I don't think he's top 10. He's not top 8. That guy got overrated, and that's
okay. That's a good pull. All right, we go to a D tackle. Did you get one for that?
I did. I had Christian Wilkins.
Ooh.
He and Josh Allen always went back and forth. Like
I know.
I like him as a player, but for that reason, I didn't really have anybody else, to be honest. But Christian Wilkins fit the description enough.
That's fair, actually. I went with the Bengal, Sheldon Rankins, for taking a huge contract and then just refusing to play because he was sick. I mean, he might have been really ill. I don't know. But his play on the field wasn't even good enough to justify that contract, even when he was healthy. Like they lost DJ Reader. He resigned. So they signed Rankins for cheaper. and he was just bad. He was bad, and then he was sick for like 3 months, which is crazy. So either he had mono, the bubonic plague, like we talked about, or polio. It's the only 3 options that could have kept him out that long, and him just not be good. So I was upset with Sheldon Rankins for his bad play, and then he did, and then he missed so much time to illness. So I was like, you know what, I'm done with you. You're cut anyways. So.
Stole money,
literally. Yeah,
Bengals organization. My inside linebacker was, and this is just honestly based off of this past year, but Azeez Al-Shaair, like the whole thing that happened with Trevor Lawrence.
Oh yeah,
I don't think he meant to hurt him, of course, but I do think he had intent of going in and throwing a big hit, and I don't know, like I thought he had plenty of time to pull up, or at least attempt to pull up. He didn't. He launched.
I will usually defend the player if the quarterback slides late, and I'm not defending him this time. He launched while Lawrence was on the ground. So yeah, he did it on purpose. He meant to hit him really hard
with his elbow up too. Like he launched.
That hurts. Elbow crazy. Yeah, I feel you're like
he wears that arm brace thing too, so it's like he's launching fucking elbow first Superman dive at a guy that's defenseless on the ground, and he kills him in the head. But the part that pissed me off the most is the whole Texans organization and him included took to Twitter and like played this whole Azeez Al-Shaair's the victim card. Like, no, the guy.
What a victim. Yeah.
The guy, like, I don't care if he's an upstanding citizen off the field, whatever. Like, I don't care. What he did was a scumbag move. I feel like it was not owned up to. He didn't. I don't know if he ever apologized. And if he did, it didn't feel genuine because of all the other fluff he put around it. It just bothered me. And then there were other clips of him in skirmishes and fights throwing punches and stuff, which doesn't say much. But this guy has a track record. I feel like they just tried to spin it as if it's just all a big misunderstanding that Azeez Al-Shaair is a scumbag. It's like, well, he did something on the field that we feel like could indicate something, and there just was no responsibility taken, and that pissed me off.
Mine was somebody I felt was the most overrated linebacker by a large margin last season, and he kind of proved it this year when he went to a new team in Patrick Queen.
I was going to say Patrick Queen.
He was so hyped up to be some people had him closer to the top 5 than a high-end linebacker too, which he was. So when he came in to be like the star in Pittsburgh, he like betrayed Baltimore, went to their biggest rival in Pittsburgh, and then kind of stunk for like a majority of the season. Got outplayed by Peyton Wilson for a while. The rookie Landon Roberts outplayed him a little while. Like Patrick Queen had some really bad games that he almost lost the game himself. So yeah, I was kind of happy to see Patrick Queen kind of fail after betraying Baltimore and acting like he betrayed them to win games, and he just did not win more games than Baltimore. He actually lost to Baltimore.
Yeah, I think he felt like he had to prove something. Like he was not this, guy that was good because of the team he was on, or because he played next to Roquan Smith. Like I think he probably felt like he was in the shadow of Roquan a little bit, and he's like, I gotta go prove myself. And then
he should go back. He should go back to being the shadow of Roquan.
Yes, and he did that well. Like he was fine doing that.
He was awesome in that role. And sometimes you're just part of a role. Like you can just be a role player. And I think that some people want to prove themselves to be not a role player. They want to prove to be the star. He's just not a star. He's not a star linebacker in the NFL yet.
No, he's not. And I agree. Yeah. And that leads me to I have 2 corners, but I'm going to say one really quick. Trayvon Diggs, because he tweeted out something about his brother not liking Buffalo and didn't shoot it down or anything. He just kind of was like, yeah, that's my brother. It's like, what the fuck? Like you're on the Bills. Like, why would you? Anyway, that pissed me off. They feel like they're cut from the same cloth. So he gets bunched in with Stephon. But my other corner was JC Horn. And
whoa, what?
This is not from this year, but a couple of years ago, he had an outstanding season. I don't know if it was his rookie year or not. It might have been his second year.
Yeah.
But people were like vaulting him into top 5 conversations at the position.
I do remember that.
And it disgusted me. It just kind of is like the Brock Purdy thing all over again. Like, young player, had a great year on a team that's not very good, but it just was, the play on the field to me was not worthy of who is in that top 5 echelon.
It's fair. It's definitely fair.
Where that comes from.
Yeah. Mine's all personality based. I had Marcus Peters as someone that was just like a nuisance every time he was on the field. And towards the end of his career, really didn't back it up ever. He kept getting burnt and then would just talk shit to everybody, fight them, and then get burnt again, and then fight somebody again. Like, I don't think I could have imagined having to watch him at the end of his career. And just fighting everybody and being angry and bad at the same time. So having to watch him was just not, it was not fun. I hated watching him.
Marcus Peters. Dude, I forgot about Marcus Peters.
Yeah. I couldn't think of a corner I hated to watch. And then I was like, I do hate that guy. Him like D'Angelo Hall, when D'Angelo Hall tried to fight D-Hop in practice that one time.
That is like most, that clip embodies karma to a T. Like,
yeah, shattered his ankle when.
That's got to be one of the most embarrassing clips for an NFL player of all time. And then my safety, I once again had 2, but for the sake of time, one of them is C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That guy pisses me off. I don't think anyone likes C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
He's one of mine.
He fits the Philly mold so perfectly, personality-wise.
And he hates their fans, apparently. From remember 2 years ago, he said he hates Philly fans, and then came back.
Well, because he went to Detroit, and did he not play, or didn't he miss time or something?
I thought he got hurt, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he get hurt last year?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But either way, he wasn't like this impactful safety that I think he probably thought he would be. Kind of one of those Patrick Queen situations, like, I'll go over here and I'll prove myself, and then he just ended up going back to Philly anyway. But my other one was, and honestly, if I'm wrong about this, please correct me, but isn't it Brian Branch that is diving at every tight end's knee, or is that Kirby?
Kirby Joseph.
It's a Kirby?
That's Kirby,
I couldn't remember, and I didn't fact check. Then it's Kirby, not Brian. I actually do like Brian Branch otherwise.
I actually love Kirby, just like, aside from that. Because he's so much fun to watch when he's not doing that. And I was really high on him as a prospect, so I kind of do root for him regardless. But I picked one partially AFC North, partially because Steelers fans are also huge babies. But Minkah Fitzpatrick is a hate watch of mine, where he still gets talked about like he's in the competition to be the best safety in the NFL. But I don't think he's there anymore. I think he was for a period of time, like 2021, where he was really good. Back when it was like him and Derwin James were like the argument. But I think guys like Kyle Hamilton and Jesse Bates, both Lions safeties, have both overtaken him at this point to me. So I think he's just still very overrated in terms of what he's still producing in 2024 and 2025. That I put him on my list. I had to.
I mean, I would say Derwin James is kind of putting himself back in that conversation, at least a lot more than Minkah is.
He's better than Minkah, in my opinion, today. Yeah.
100%. But yeah, that was fun. I knew that we would kind of run that one long, but
I know it's hard not to.
I know it really is. Like, I knew the second we started talking about quarterbacks, I'm like, oh boy.
For the award pick, since there's so many categories for each one, do you want to kind of give it the same idea where you give your opinion and then like a quick sentence or two, maybe drop a few stats, and then move on? So we can, in the sake of getting this done in a half hour.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of these are kind of self-explanatory too. So that
right, we've talked about a lot of these.
Speak for themselves. So basically, for the award predictions coming up, we are going to run through every award, well, the big ones, I should say, and we're going to give our opinion on who should win, who will win, and a dark horse winner. So we can start with head coach or coach of the year, and I think we can both agree that Kevin O'Connell should and will win this award. He
shouldn't, but but I'm close.
You're close.
I think Andy Reid always deserves a mention for like the team being kind of lazy and still just dominating everybody in terms of like having such a crazy record. So he always gets close. But yes, Kevin O'Connell is my should and will.
So is Andy Reid your dark horse?
No, Sean Payton's my dark horse.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
We talked about that last time. terms of a guy that kind of just turned around his team quickly without getting much better players. Always impressive. But who's your dark horse?
I went with Sean McDermott. I mean,
I like that. Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to require for him to at least be in the conversation, but I think he kind of suffers like Andy Reid does with like quarterback tax. I have to imagine
I hate quarterback tax.
But for a guy that took a team that had lost so many key pieces, made them the second seed, or of course, a big reason why they were the second seed, 13 games won, and it was supposed to be a retooling year. Like, I don't know what else it could take. Like, for a coach to be at least in the conversation, and he's just never considered. He's just never talked about. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I think his playoff record here in recent years has kind of kept him down. Where there's like a sour taste in everyone's mouth, where it is like the Josh Allen tax, where everyone thinks that he's the one doing it, and McDermott's kind of just there. I mean, I've seen, like you said, I've seen people trying to fire him already after their playoff loss, which is insane. So, that's a good honorable mention. That's a good.
Yeah, I feel like he's a guy. It's just like Josh Allen. It's like, when is it going to happen? Like, they both have had multiple seasons now that I felt have been worthy of it, and it hasn't happened. It's like, who's going to win one first? It's probably going to be Josh, but
probably
if McDermott goes this entire like span of time without winning one with the Bills, I will be pretty pissed because I think he's done an exceptional job.
I think so.
And
what's next?
Let's go to comeback player of the year. I'm interested to see who your choices are for this one.
And my criteria is injury. I'm not a person that has come back from being terrible. So Sam Darnold would be my case. If coming back from being bad was my pick, it would be Darnold. But for injury, it's Joe Burrow. For should and will. He is number one in the odds, but also to have a significant nerve injury in your throwing wrist, like that's a pretty big deal for someone that already didn't have crazy arm strength. And you saw it the first few weeks of the season, where like his ball was slow, but he picked it up and then put up about 5,000 yards. So he's a comeback player of the year for sure.
Yeah, he was my will win. I think Joe Burrow has run away with this. Before the season, I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to pick up and sprint with this award.
I thought
because of all the shit that everyone talked about in the media with him and how everyone overhyped the Jets, and my dumbass fell for it. But Joe Burrow now I think will comfortably win it. It's funny that you mentioned the criteria of this award because I really don't know what it is. It would be injury for me if it were up to me, but it feels like they just kind of decide every year what they feel like the criteria will be.
Yeah.
It's just what they are feeling that season for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I went and voted on it that exact same way. And I think Burrow will win, but I think you made a good point last week. I think Zach Bond should win. I mean,
fair. Yeah.
The definition of a guy that was literally a nobody that no one could have ever imagined being a first team All-Pro in a linebacker room that last year was abysmal. Like it just this was not anything that anyone could have foreseen. I feel like Darnold definitely would be my runner-up if this was the specific criteria. But even still for him, like the whole Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson playing in that environment taxes him for me. Zach Bond, there was no path to this in anyone's mind.
I could probably see him putting it as like a dark horse for me because of the criteria that I put. But I still run with injury with J.K. Dobbins.
Okay.
As someone that but he had what was it, Achilles for him?
Yep.
Twice. So coming back and having his best season probably of his career, pretty impressive to me on a team that wasn't supposed to be that good, and it kind of was.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he injury-wise, especially, he probably should. I mean, 2 times tearing your Achilles and coming back and being very good, or at least comparatively to how somebody coming off of 2 Achilles injuries would be. I think he probably should be right there with Joe Burrow in terms of odds if we're going injury-wise.
Yeah.
But my dark horse, this is a dark horse. This is the definition of it. I went with Tim Patrick.
Hey, I like that. Yeah.
Tim Patrick. I feel like this is he's like a people's player. Like, I don't know if anyone dislikes Tim Patrick
No, he's good.
Yeah. And he had that stretch of games with Detroit where he was like their leading receiver. And it's like, welcome back, Tim Patrick. He was kind of that boundary guy, that big physical player that I feel like they've been missing on the outside. That's what they signed him for.
There was a point in time I thought that him and Portland Sutton weren't that far off.
Right.
Like, he was actually really, really, really good in Denver for a bit. He had a 50-yard touchdown on the weekly, it felt like, at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So did he have 2 consecutive season enders, like in the early season, like preseason or almost?
Yep. Training camp, I think one of them was.
Yeah. So to come back from that and be like the number 3 receiving option on a really good offense, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a good pick.
I like Tim Patrick a lot. He just seems like a good dude too. So I like Tim Patrick. All right, let's go to the rookie awards. Defensive Rookie of the Year. What do you got?
I have another showdown. Will Jared Verse is someone that he's like stats actually don't show it. Statistically, he was like very average when you look at just sacks and tackles. Like when you just look at like the regular box score. But like, what was he? Second in QB hurries, 4th in pressures. Was also like an elite run defender. Like every time I tuned into a Rams game, he was tearing them up. I was actually shocked to see he only had a handful of sacks. But yeah, he dominated most of their games. Just crazy.
I think he's a top 10. I would put him at my 10th. When I was doing
he's over Brian Burns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think he's over him. I think he's my 10 right now, maybe even my 9 if I were to.
He could be, just for what he does as a run defender, I could put him pretty high.
Yeah, exceptional season. I mean, I think he put together a year that, I mean, Will Anderson was excellent his rookie season, but I think he had the season. Jared Verse had the season his rookie year that I think people thought Will Anderson would, if that makes sense.
Will Anderson had that season this year.
Yes.
Where he was fantastic. But yeah, I think that he was slightly disappointing last year, and Verse did that, where he had like a minimal statistical season, but like on tape, he was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was also my should and will win. Who is your dark horse for defense rookie?
Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker for Green Bay. He was a fantastic blitzer. Every time I tuned into a Green Bay, like he was like a lightning in a bottle into the backfield, on top of being like a pretty good run defender and one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL already. So like to be like a kind of projecty, wiry linebacker and come in and be like one of the better linebackers off the rip was pretty impressive to me.
It's funny you say that because my defensive rookie of the year is also a Packer, and he just happens to play over his head. Evan Williams is my dark horse. Jeff Hafley, I mean, hats off to Jeff Hafley. He did a great job. What was the former DC's name? Why can't I remember his name right now?
I don't remember.
Joe Barry, is that right?
Yeah.
Joe Barry. Oh my God, Joe Barry. I'll never forget the screenshot of Preston Smith covering or like lining up across from Justin Jefferson
in the slot, right?
Like, yes, in the slot. I will never forget that.
285-pound Preston Smith in press coverage. Justin Jefferson.
Like that embodied that defense, and to see Jeff Hafley come in and turn this unit into one of the best secondaries, pass defending groups. Edgerrin, right?
I think it's Edgerrin Cooper is what I call it.
Edgerrin Cooper.
Yeah.
Evan Williams in the back end, like he really turned this group around, and I think he deserves a ton of credit. But Evan Williams being a 4th round pick, playing with Xavier McKinney, like it worked out a lot more than I think people would have even thought.
I actually wasn't even that high on Evan Williams because I thought that he had a lot of limitations in my opinion as like a center field or even like too high post safety, but he didn't actually really have to do that. They kind of played him down in the box, and he just like dominated in the run game. He was awesome, especially early in the year when they couldn't find their feet, or they needed to find their feet with their rookie DBs. Like he took over, and he played over Bullard, who was drafted higher than him as like another rookie safety on the team. So yeah, that's a good pull. That's a pull that like you only know if you actually watch football. Because Evan Williams was solid.
Yeah, he was, and I think to your point, that was what Xavier McKinney allowed him to do because that was he was the ball hawk over the top, and
Yeah.
he had an excellent season too.
Mhm.
But that signing was, I think, what was the word I was going to use? I can't remember. He definitely had a lot to do with the flexibility that they can use Evan Williams in.
Yeah, he opened it up because Xavier McKinney is like arguably the best like center field single high post safety in the NFL. So having like bigger downhill attacking safeties that can rotate down and play the game that they want to because you have the guy that can do that in McKinney is awesome. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, for offensive rookie of the year, I think we probably agree on the should and will.
I don't really have to talk about that very much. Yeah. We just say the name.
Do we even have to say his name?
I don't think we do, and I don't think I'm gonna.
No, me either. No.
I think we should all know who should be the offensive rookie of the year at this point. Despite some good honorable. Bucky Irving.
Okay.
But I threw an honorable mention to Joe Alt. But Bucky Irving to have like over 1,100 rushing yards, I think like 350 receiving yards, take over the starting role, and bring this offense back when they had injuries to Mike Evans and Godwin. Pretty impressive to me. So he's my dark horse.
Bucky, that's a good one. And Bucky, to me, this is going to be a weird comparison, but he was a guy that you can almost use in like a, I guess, Jamar Chase type of. Let me explain. A Jamar Chase type of like way, because Jamar obviously is known for being able to take a ball behind the line of scrimmage and go 80 yards to the house. Like that was how they were using Bucky. Like he got a lot of like wide receiver roll screens.
Yeah, I call that like a gadget role to me, where it's like you don't necessarily even need to have a position. It's like the Percy Harvin, Tavon Austin, DeAnthony Thomas kind of thing, where like they can line up anywhere out the backfield and the slot and just get the ball to him. That's all you have to do. Get him the ball in space and let him make plays. And he was that. He was awesome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he caught a lot of screens that went for a lot of yards, and I feel like he was probably the leading receiver for a game or two.
Probably. Yeah.
He broke a couple big ones off. Like and the thing is, with guys like that, usually they're good in that sort of role, but then they're not really good at the primary position they play.
No, he's awesome.
Bucky's fantastic as a runner too. Like he's great.
He's violent for being that small. He runs so hard, and he's like a reverse DeAndre Swift, where like he's good in space, but he has good vision, and he runs angry, and he falls forward. So it's good. Yeah. So who you got for your dark horse?
My dark horse for offensive rookie is kind of boring, but he was my offensive rookie of the year prediction before the year, and I'm kind of upset that the who shall not be named had such a good season, because I feel like it would be him instead. But Brian Thomas Jr., I mean, I could not believe the year he had, even though I was high on him. He would, I think, finished top 5 in receiving yards. He was putting up dumb numbers without Trevor Lawrence playing. He virtually ran every single route on the tree, which is something that a lot of people were concerned about.
I was,
coming out of college. Like, he wasn't just a burner down the field. He was winning in the slot. This guy was great after the catch. Like, anything you asked Brian Thomas to do, he was able to do it at an extremely high level in a very, very bad situation. So I really am upset that he's not going to get the recognition I feel like he deserves because of he who shall not be named. But my question to you, if he who shall not be named wasn't in the conversation, between Brian Thomas and Brock Bowers, who do you think you give it to?
It's hard not to give it to Bowers because of like the receiving production he does, and he's a blocker. To be able to do that with, in my opinion, even worse quarterback play for like a full season, and the only weapon on the team, I would probably give it to Bowers. But BTJ is a close 3. I have him over Bucky just slightly, and like deserves full credit. Like in a lot of years, he probably would win. It just happens to be like rookies this year popped off. Unfortunate for him, but I'm actually more upset that he didn't make the Pro Bowl on the first try. That's the biggest tragedy.
Yeah, talk about something that we should not even bring up. Like we shouldn't even name
Flowers
that either.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The
Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy. The funny side tangent. I did not like Jerry Jeudy before the season for fantasy purposes. Like I would do my
Yeah.
live streams and whatever, my rankings for fantasy, and he just wasn't high on my list for I feel like a lot of obvious reasons. He had that like 40-point game late in the season, and someone DM'd me on TikTok, someone that I didn't know. Their name didn't match anyone in the Discord. I've never received a message from them, or at least a comment that I could remember. And he messaged me saying, I told you to be high on Jerry Jeudy. You should have known better. I'm like, what? Like, one, who are you? And two, the fact that you're victory lapping this is insane. And like,
Like
he
so
might have,
so like it's a victory lap that successfully. You would have had to have known that Watson wasn't going to play the full season.
yes.
You would have had to have known that like Jameis Winston would come in and throw like 40 times a game and air it out. You had to have known that he would be the backup at all because he wasn't initially. Like there was so many things that had to go right for Jerry Jeudy to break out, and they all did perfectly. But if Watson came back, like that wasn't going to happen. It wasn't. It didn't happen while he was playing. So no, it's not like something that like you should have just known because in theory he was still going to have a bad season before Winston came in.
Mhm. That was the most insane victory lap I've ever seen someone try to take
No,
in my life.
I only let people victory lap if the process was right. So if they were like, if they said like, yeah, I mean Jerry Judy's going to struggle with Watson there, but if he gets hurt, like he might, and Jameis Winston plays, he could blow up. If they predict that, sure, that's incredible. But if you're like he's going to have a great year and then he doesn't, and then they switch quarterbacks and he does, I mean you don't really get that.
I agree. It's like when you're playing pool and you hit the wrong ball, but then two of your own go in. It's like,
Yeah, I act like I did that.
yeah, like you didn't.
I knew I
that.
meant to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't like sometimes I play darts and I'll be aiming for like a 20 and I'll just hit the bullseye. I'm like, yeah, meant to do that. Like, no problem. I did, but I'm gonna act like I did. Great shot.
Yeah. Like, okay, buddy. You victory lap that all you want, pal.
Yeah.
How about? Well, we did both rookies, right?
Yep.
We did. So,
DPOY.
defensive player of the year. What do you got?
I once again have a should and will. I think Pat Surtain deserves some flowers because I hate that it's an edge rusher award these days, and I hate that it's also an interception award for DBs. I just want corners to win that were shut down the full season. And if you do your job for like 17 games, had like maybe one miscue against the Panthers one time, like I'm gonna give him my award. If you're a corner that only messes up once or twice on the season, you get to win. That's as easy as it is for me. And he revived the defense.
The only reason he's not my should and will, he is going to win it. Like I'm most confident that he wins this award out of any of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason two reasons. I have my should for one as Trey Hendrickson.
He is behind him, yeah.
I do, kind of fall captive to the edge rusher award.
It's so hard not to.
Yeah, it is. I just think like a guy that leads in pressures. I think he had the most quick pressures. He led the position in sacks, led the league in sacks. Like he had such a great year. I do think, gun to my head, yeah, I'll tell you, Surtain should have won it and will win it. But just for the sake of being slightly different. But the other reason why I'm not saying Surtain is because I think it was 2 years ago before the 2020 season. I made a video about how I don't think Pat Surtain should be in the top corner conversation yet.
Oh no.
This TikTok did not do good numbers. Like it was not a well-performing video. That motherfucker found it.
What?
Like the actual Pat Surtain found that video and commented on it and said, like, why not? Or something like that. Like just some bullshit. Like, why would you say that?
That's my biggest fear.
What the fuck? And
that's my biggest fear.
I had to respond, but I'm like, how did you find this video?
I would delete him and block it. I'm not going to get embarrassed like that. Not in front of my friends. Don't embarrass me. Dear God.
He didn't have a profile picture. I don't even know if he was verified. He was verified. I'm pretty sure.
He had to have been verified. Otherwise, it's like some kid named Pat, like just named Patrick that was really upset.
It definitely was him. I remember validating it somehow. But
it has like 20 million followers. Like, yeah, that might be him.
I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, of course he found it. So yes, he's the best corner in football now, but back then, no, I don't think
That's
he
fair.
was. I'll stand on that. Pat, if you somehow come across this too, you are now, but you weren't then. So for that reason, you're not my should win.
You heard me. I sang your praises. I had Trey Hendrickson as like not my dark horse, but like an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Because if you lead the league in like almost every major pass rushing category, yeah, you get flowers for sure. And he had some games where it was like late in the fourth quarter, and the secondary was toast. Like they were getting cooked every time they throw him. And Trey Hendrickson would pick up the offensive tackle and slam him into the quarterback, like into his knees. Like he did that like 3 or 4 times to win games. Like he was the only edge rusher. He was the only defensive player that played well the entire season. And to do that, to come with like the trash talking that he does, is the best. Is the most underrated in the NFL. No one even knows it because they think he's some like little Christian boy looking at him. But like he pulls up like in his and one shoes and then just absolutely dominates. So, it's a good one.
No gloves either.
No, nothing. I had Zach Bond as my other dark horse.
Okay.
But that's like, I guess that's dark horsey enough.
Yeah,
linebacker. No one ever picks linebackers.
Yeah, I would agree. I think my dark horse was Micah Parsons.
Fair.
He didn't play quite enough to probably truly qualify, which is why I think he fit my dark horse. But the numbers he put up in the games he played were kind of mind-boggling. Like I think this was arguably the best year of his career. Maybe I could say confidently the best year of his career. And had he played the full season, I think he leads in pressures. I think he leads in sacks. I think every major pass rush category, Micah Parsons would have been crowned. Like that's the kind of pace he was on. And it sucks that defense just kind of crumbled. He missed a few games, but he was exceptional. And he kind of has to be because he's one of those guys that just kind of talks crazy on Twitter.
Talks so much shit all the time.
Like, yeah. So I'm glad he backs it up, or at least did this year. So
I'm a fan. I mean, aside from the college stuff, we can forget that. And I can be a fan a little bit, He's a bully more than one way, but to be able to like line up across the formation, like he can line up as a middle linebacker or edge rusher or inside and win everywhere. He's ridiculous. Like he's easily, am I going to say top 3? Probably. I'll probably say top 3 edge rusher in the NFL.
Yeah. Who else? Miles, Micah. Is Watt still in that conversation?
Not if he produces pass rushing like he did this year. Yeah. I appreciate a good run defender when they're there, but like Sam Hubbard's a good run defender. Like I need to see good pass rushing production for you to be in that category. It's more important.
Yeah, he's definitely not a shoo-in anymore. I would say
no, he's not a shoo-in. He's a think about it. Like Trey Hendrickson's a think about it. He's the opposite. Yeah. He's not a great run defender, but he's an elite pass rusher.
So Micah, I think for me is 100% top 3.
Yeah.
And for offensive player of the year, what do you got for that?
Saquon. I have Saquon because I think that if he played the extra game and broke the record, and then if Jalen Hurts didn't rush for 14 touchdowns, I'm sure like I'm sure at least I'd say probably 3 or 4 of those are like genuine like 10+ yard scrambles. But I would say he probably had 10 push touchdowns. I had him in fantasy. I'm well aware. So I think if Saquon, what do you have, 13 rushing touchdowns on the season?
I think so.
If he would have had like 25 even, on top of having 2,000 breaking the rushing record, that would have been the best rushing season we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So to not give him that would be really hard for me.
Yeah, and after my spiel about Micah Parsons and using hypotheticals about what his numbers could have been like makes this really contradictory because Saquon would have broken every record ever had he played one more game, likely.
He would have. It's not he dominated the Giants the first time. Yes.
That's really the only reason why I didn't make him my should, because I just cannot fathom a Triple Crown winner not winning.
It's so hard. And I know it's so hard. I know. To pick between a 2,000 yard rusher and a Triple Crown winner. Insane.
Yeah. Saquon's going to win it. Like, I think pretty confidently I can say that,
Mhm.
but I'm going to be kind of frustrated for Jamar. Like, I don't know how much more you could do to win an award like
He
that.
had one of the best receiving seasons in the last decade. Like that's incredible. And I mean, a lot of it came from volume, but still to win on all three levels, like he wins
Mm-hmm.
intermediate, short, and deep screens and deep balls. Like that's incredible.
Yeah.
But man, what Saquon did to revive them was crazy. The numbers he put up and would have put up if they let him, I think, would be even crazier. So it's like it's crazy to say that a guy that ran for 2,000 yards has a situation in where he could have ran for way more and ran for 10 plus more touchdowns that the quarterback steals. Like that's insane. But
Yeah.
who's your dark horse for that one?
I don't know if this is really a dark horse, but I think it kind of fits the description. I went with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Fair.
He led the league in scrimmage touchdowns, total touchdowns for skill position players with 20. He, in my opinion, was the best player on the Lions, especially down the stretch. Like, that guy was the spark plug that kept that team alive.
Yeah.
And I can't remember off the top of my head how many yards he had from scrimmage, but he was up there as well. So Jahmyr Gibbs to me was an integral piece to the Lions operation. And without him, I think
Yeah.
it would have been a very sluggish and, not explosive team. Like, other than Jahmyr Gibbs, they're really not explosive. Like, Laporta's a good possession receiving option. Amon-Ra is good in the short to intermediate game, but he's not really breaking anything off. Tim Patrick, David Montgomery, like, they don't really have any other explosive piece outside of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's really the gear that makes that thing turn at the efficient level it does. So to me, Jahmyr Gibbs was hands down my easy choice for this one.
I like that. I like that because a lot of people thought that David Montgomery was like half of the puzzle and that Jahmyr Gibbs needed that other half. Like he couldn't do it on his own. And I think part of that could be true to like win playoff games. You need like you need both of them healthy, but God, Jahmyr Gibbs took over games at the end of the season and also partially lost me the fantasy playoffs. So in a different league. That was terrible.
Who's your dark horse?
I'm going to put somebody who I think is going to be horribly disrespected in the MVP conversation. So I'm going to put him as my OPY, Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
So when you look statistically, had comfortably the best season. And if his defense gave up even 20 points a game, would have been an MVP serious conversation. So Joe Burrow, who threw for just shy of 5,000, 43 touchdowns, and 70.6% completion percentage is crazy. So to put up like legitimate Drew Brees numbers and probably be like fourth in MVP voting will be crazy. So at least statistically was the best quarterback. So he gets to go there for me.
Thinking about what could have been for the Bengals if their defense was any good, Trey Hendrickson probably wins.
If it was even slightly below average, they'd be a playoff team. If it was average, they would have won a playoff. If it was good, they'd win this. It was insane how good they were. So it's so sad.
Yeah, and now all three of their superstars aren't going to get any recognition either, which is just sick.
No, they're all going to be like second. Yeah, and everything.
Oh man, yeah.
And they all led the stats too. Like they all dominated the stat sheet in everything. Mm-hmm. Like for their category, Hendrickson dominated for edge rushers. Jamar was far and away the best receiver. Joe Burrow had the most passing yards by like 800, which is like insane. Like he had the most passing yards by so much, and the most touchdowns. Oh. And like I think he's top 5, top 3 in completion percentage too. So like to do that and like lose because your defense gave up 26 points per game, it's crazy.
That might go down as one of the biggest wasted seasons for three specific players of all time.
I think when like people look back at Drew Brees and they're like, man, look at these seasons. How did he not win MVP in these seasons? This is how.
Yep.
Because like everyone factors in team success, regardless of how it happened. Even though Drew Brees didn't have good defenses and he put up great numbers and volume, everyone's like, well, like he didn't win enough games, so he doesn't get to be MVP this season.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we're looking at again. So. He's not my MVP, by the way. I picked a different MVP.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say who's your should and will for MVP then?
I have the same one. And I hate doing it. I hate doing it. I hate it. I hate it so much. And I didn't a few weeks ago, but I tried so hard not to as a Ravens hater. I didn't want to do it, but I rewatched everything, and I had to put it.
Heartbroken.
I had to do it. I did not want to. As a Joe Burrow fan, as a Bengals fan, I wanted to put Burrow as my MVP. I wanted to put Allen as my MVP. I didn't feel right when I put it down. It didn't feel like what my heart told me to do.
Fair enough. That's what this is all about. You got to be honest. You got to do what you got to do.
When you look at the production and the wins and like the at times unstoppability of that team, like what do you have? I think you have like what was his touchdown? 41-4. Like I've never seen that from a quarterback that also ran for like 800 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's so stupid. Like how at times unstoppable they were. Like they only had a few close games on the season. Like at times, like to lead the number one offense in the NFL and put up the best production, arguably. Yeah, I'll give it to them. But I don't want to.
All right, my will win is Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after the AP list came out, I kind of was like defeated. That usually is a tall tale sign as to who's going to win the MVP. Although there, for some reason, feels like there's this gray area with it. Now people are thinking Josh can still have a chance.
There's momentum. There's some momentum coming.
There is it's going to be an interesting race. Like I will be on the edge of my seat until that card is read, because I do think it could go either way. My should win is Josh. It just feels like there have been so many seasons that Josh has had now where, kind of like I was saying with McDermott, what else can he do? It's like he just finds himself producing in seasons where there's these other phenomenal options, and he just can't get over the hump. Like in 2020, Rodgers throws 2 picks all year.
Yeah.
Like, what are the chances? And then this year, Lamar goes berserk, and
last year, I think, like to me, Josh Allen should have won more last year than this year, in terms of like who he was facing to win MVP. It was like McCaffrey, Dak, and Lamar, and like I think that Burrow, Lamar, and Allen this season would have won last season. I think all 3 of those, and Saquon, I'll add him in there. I think all 4 of them from this season would have won MVP last year. But Lamar won like the most Steve Nash MVP possible last season. But I think if you take the criteria that Lamar had last year, Jamar should win, or Josh Allen should win. From like the quarterback that, even though they're not statistically the best, they win on a team where they kind of carried their team. Sure, I think Josh Allen could win. But if it's like production and on top of team stats, I got to give it to Lamar. I don't want to.
Once again, it's just kind of like the comeback player of the year. Like, what is really the criteria? What really tips the scales for these guys?
Yeah, is it like stats? Is it team winning? Is it a mixture of both? Is it your tape? Because all 3 of those are different. Like all 4 of those are so different. And when you have 2 guys that produce at elite level in Lamar and Burrow, Josh Allen, who didn't quite meet that, but he had the wins and the tape, it's hard not to. It's hard to pick.
Yeah. And I get why their lives are difficult. Like, I don't envy award voters, but
no,
it just does piss me off that it feels like there's just no consistency with any of this, especially after hearing, and this isn't even as much being a Bills fan that I was mad, but just seeing Flacco win that award last year, like, pissed me the fuck off. Like, that was the most morally wrong thing I think I've ever seen. Like,
him winning comeback
awards, or Flacco winning it over DeMar. Like, I would have bet every single dime to my name that I had and will have made after the fact on him winning that award. And
I mean, he was dead. Legitimately, he like what else can you come back from? Being bad and being old, or being dead? I don't care that Flacco played better than DeMar Hamlin. He's like, he was dead.
Literally.
And then he came back and played football. That was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced at a football game in my life. And I've experienced a lot of weird stuff at games. But seeing DeMar Hamlin die in person, very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. I had
And
to experience a lot of stuff in that at that Cincinnati stadium.
and these voters just were like acting like it's just something that happens on a year-to-year basis. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
died, but that happens. Like people die every day. How often
people
do people come back from being old?
oh my god. Yeah, so I feel like the award ceremony just hasn't treated Bills players or coaches very fairly recently.
They
So
have not. No. I thought Josh Allen's case to win last year was way stronger. I thought like he was probably my favorite last year.
mhm.
Like I like the production that he was putting up. I don't care that he had digs, like he was still doing great. And I don't see how it also wasn't even Dak Prescott. I thought Dak Prescott deserved it over Lamar last year.
Mhm.
His passing production was awesome.
Yeah, one
And
bad game against the
it was like
Niners, right?
literally it was like a Mickey Mouse MVP for Lamar last season. Which is why to me the awards don't hold that much weight when we're talking about like for like all time ratings.
Mhm.
Because so many things factor into that. I don't really care that much.
Yeah, that's fair. Like at what point does like being first team all pro or having an MVP or two MVPs really like factor into where you might rank them comparatively to someone else? And
Yeah.
that's where my dark horse kind of comes in too. It's like I get he's young, he hasn't won anything yet, but in terms of players that elevated their team, and granted, postseason is playing into this a lot.
Yes, I have the
He
same
who
one.
shall not be named
Yeah,
is my dark horse
I have
because
the same one.
I don't know, like MVP is all about the player that the team needs the most valuable. That's to
Yep.
me, by definition, what an MVP is. If I take this player and take him off this team and replace him with someone else, anybody, average or not, they're going to be worse.
hmm
That's who he was for Washington.
Yeah, I'm with that. Um, that's exactly who I had. I don't really have much else to say about it. Like he just statistically was fine for like a high end quarterback, but when you watch the games and watch what he did to help them win, I don't know how you get much more valuable to your team
Mm-hmm.
because you can point to a position group from all the top three quarterbacks, top four even, that was outstanding. Either, Mahomes and Allen have incredible offensive lines, Burrow and Lamar have incredible weapons. You look at Daniels and you're like, they're all pretty average besides Terry. Like everything's pretty average besides one receiver on the team, and they make it work. And they were outstanding. They were an incredible offense because of the quarterback. Like he carried the team. Him and Terry carried the team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm with that one. That's a good one.
I wouldn't have been as much on this train. I feel like if the postseason didn't happen, but
No, it helped me.
it helped a lot. And to some extent, I almost feel like we should maybe start leveraging postseason success into this. Like I know they
I
never
thought
will.
about that. Yeah, when you texted me about doing this episode, this idea, I was trying to debate in my head if I wanted to do just regular season or do I factor in guys that dominated in the playoffs too? Because that
Mm-hmm.
matters. And I know like the voting has nothing to do with the playoffs, but it should a little bit. Like there's no playoff awards. Like you should get recognition for who dominated in the playoffs.
Right.
Like Jalen Carter, like guys like that had better playoffs than they did regular seasons. Definitely deserve some recognition. And guys that didn't, guys like Sam Darnold who did bad in the playoffs, like they don't deserve the same recognition that they are
Mm-hmm.
probably going to get because they didn't do it when it mattered.
Yep. And that's what, and as much as all these awards are predicated on winning and wins and
I
just
don't care
team
about
success,
that. Yeah.
like you would think those that perform at the highest of level when it matters the most for their team, you would think that would matter because of how much team success seems to matter. So,
I hate that so much, the team success part, because
yeah.
people look at it in a blanket. Like they're just like, did his team win? Yes or no? Was he the quarterback of that team? Yes. Okay, he's good. Like it to me, it depends on like how much you did for your wins and how much you impacted your losses.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you had bad games and a loss, sure, like it's on you. But when you're Joe Burrow and you have multiple games where you throw from over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against Baltimore and you lose both of them because your kicker missed a field goal and your defense gave up almost 50 points, like you can only do so much. So like literally they win one of like if Evan McPherson was good this season, they would have made the playoffs, which is insane. Like, and the fact like to hold wins against a quarterback when so many of them are outside of your hands, it's a little strange. And then you have guys like Jalen Hurts that are getting recognition for winning when he's like arguably like the least impactful player among like Saquon and AJ Brown and the line on that team.
Mm-hmm. Even the defense. I mean, I feel like the defense should also play a part in this conversation too. Like,
yeah, easily. Like Jalen Hurts could throw for 95 yards and win a game. Like 10 for 31 passing and 10 rushing yards, and they would win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy.
That's really
crazy.
Like that is a realistic line.
That's insane. It's happened. And I was talking about like CJ Stroud yesterday with somebody. Like, dude, I didn't realize how bad some of his stat lines would look like that in games. But man, it was a weird year for quarterbacks. It was some were up and some were down.
Yeah,
and Hurts was down.
But overall, I mean, I think we can look at the MVP race from last year to this year, for example, and we were spoiled this year.
Yeah, last year sucked. This year was great.
Yeah, like last year did suck. It just
sucked. I didn't even watch the award ceremony. I didn't care.
I was ready to punch my fucking monitor. Like,
where did he even finish in the voting? I don't think he was even 2.
I don't remember.
Josh Allen, I feel like he was like wildly disrespected last year. Like he was like 3rd or 4th in voting, like behind like McCaffrey or somebody or Dak.
I was looking at, and speaking of this before we wrap it up, the whole Cam Newton stuff that went down the last like week. I saw someone tweet out like, and I think you actually saw my tweet about the Jalen Hurts and Cam Newton conversation. It's just some stupid fucking Philly fan saying some stupid fucking shit, just like they do every week. And I went and looked out of curiosity to see if Cam Newton was one of the unanimous MVP winners. And I knew he wasn't, but I just wanted to see like why in 2015 he wasn't. So Tom Brady got a vote.
He always would, yeah.
So Cam Newton got 48, Brady got 1, and Carson Palmer got another. Like,
but in Arizona?
That had to be racist.
At that point?
That had to be racist.
That is definitely racist. That is the most racist shit. Like, Carson Palmer didn't produce like half of what he did with like a really good supporting cast. With 2015, he had what? Was David Johnson there? Larry Fitzgerald still there? Like,
I gotta check.
They were a good team. Like, they were so good.
He threw for 4,600. He had 35 touchdowns, 11 picks. Like, he had a good year.
That's a good year at the time, especially. But like, Jesus Christ, look what Cam Newton did, and what it was his record. That's the one time I allow QB wins to really be a thing because he had all of their wins.
Mm-hmm.
Did they lose to the Falcons that year? I think that's like the only time they lost was to the Falcons. It feels like. Mm-hmm. And when you have like Philly Brown and a rookie Devin Funchess, and like he had a
player now.
Yeah. Like they had multiple guys that were Pro Bowlers, like Kawan Short, like guys that made the Pro Bowl, so it looks like the squad was better than it was. But yeah, like that team was not even close to the Philly team of today.
No.
Maybe aside from linebacker, I would say that Philly probably wins in every position group.
Oh, hands down.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
aside
close.
from like Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis at linebacker, yeah, I would say that Philly was better in every single position.
100%. I don't think it's close either.
No.
So yeah, that was a talk that I had to have a couple of times this week of just arguing about how good Cam Newton was and people just not remembering that season in his prime. But yeah, I think that's about all I have for episode 7.
That is all I have as well.
All right. Well, this was a good one. This was a fun one. Mm-hmm. We look forward to next episode. We'll dive into the Super Bowl, get ready for that big game and whether or not we're actually even excited for it. But
I'm not. But you know what?
We'll get into our predictions then for episode 8. But for now, if you enjoyed this one, like, subscribe, follow. All of our socials are down in the description for Against the Blitz as well as for us individually. So go down there and check it out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And thank you for watching. Peace.